Hello everyone and welcome back to Stewards Office. I'm Saira and this week we have just a little bit of kind of everything, I guess, because this week what I really wanted to talk about was the state of the 2025 F1 grid. I mentioned in my last episode with the news about Nico Hülkenberg moving to Sauber that it has changed what I think is going to go on in silly season. So I thought I'd sit down and just have a chat about what I think is gonna potentially be happening over the next couple of months, because more and more conversations are now being had about where Carlos Sainz might go because he is yet to secure a seat for 2025. And as we slowly move into the European leg of the season, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about contract negotiations, and then it won't be long before summer break and silly season really begins to kick off. I think especially as the F2 season picks up a little bit more pace as we get into the European season as well, we're going to hear a lot more about potential rookies that might be coming into Formula 1. So I thought I'd just have a sit down before everything kicks off and it gets a little bit busy with silly season to talk about what I think the next couple of months are going to look like. What I do want to start off with this episode though is whether or not Logan Sargeant is going to lose his seat midway through the season. Now, I quite like Logan Sargeant, and as much as it guts me to say this, I don't think he's going to be keeping his seat in 2025, and I don't think that's a wild prediction for any of us to make right now, let's be honest. The 2024 season hasn't really gotten off the way that Williams would have wanted, that he probably would have wanted it to start, and that any of us would have wanted to see his season start. Now we're, 6 races into the season now, and I do think that this is a decision or something that has been playing around in the mind of James Vowles and other people in Williams since quite early on in the season. Because 6 races, we're a quarter of the way into the F1 season with 24 races. That's not a lot, considering that Williams isn't particularly a competitive car right now either. It doesn't look as competitive as what they had in 2023. But I do think that Williams have pretty much all but made the decision that, yeah, if they can swap Logan out early, they will. But he definitely won't be carrying on in 2025. I think that thought, the 2025 seat is pretty much solidified in their head. They are definitely going to be looking for a driver for next season. Now, don't get me wrong, this might not be the case. Maybe Williams haven't really thought about it yet. Maybe they are still going to give him a couple of races to try and prove himself and prove that he can keep that seat. I don't particularly think that's the case. I think they have come to a decision, and if that is the case, if they've come to the decision that they don't want Logan in the seat for 2025 without really giving him even half a season to see, like, you've not even waited 12 races to make that decision, I do have to wonder why you opted to re-sign him, because I feel like the feeling we've gotten from Williams since the season had started has been that Logan isn't what they want long term. So why bother keeping him in the seat and signing him for the 2024 season if this early on in the 2024 season you seem like you've come up with a decision about his future? Now, part of me wonders whether it was just a panic. They had given Logan the entirety of the 2023 season, right? James Vowles said, no, we want to give him the full season to really see what he can do, right? And I don't know whether they just left it too late to find another driver, which I find hard to believe in Formula 1, that it would ever be too late to find another driver to take that spot. Or whether it was just, we don't really know who else to put in that seat. Majority of the grid's contracts are running out in 2024. There weren't a whole load that were running out in 2023. I don't particularly think Williams were looking at putting another rookie into that seat for this year if they could help it. Maybe it was a sort of better the devil you know situation that was going on with the team. But yes, I do think that they've kind of made that decision that at least in 2025 he's not going to be carrying on with the team. And yeah, it does just lead to the question of, was there a point in you guys opting to sign him for another year if you've made that decision so early on? Like I said, the season has not been going amazing for him. The Miami crash, to be fair, his home race where he DNF'd, that was not his fault. Even the stewards found Kevin Magnussen to be at fault there, so you can't blame him for that. His other performances in the other 5 races of the season, though, haven't exactly been wow. Yes, Williams has not been a very quick car. It's struggling when it's battling in the midfield. They haven't scored a point, neither driver has. But I think what Williams wanted, even if the car wasn't super competitive, which it isn't, they really wanted Logan to be up to speed with Alex Albon pretty quickly this season. And that's what James was really saying last season as well. He wasn't expecting Logan to really outperform Alex. Great if he did, but that's not what he was expecting. He wasn't expecting him to sort of storm up the field in the Williams car. What he wanted was there to be a smaller gap between Alex and Logan. And that has not happened in this season so far. Alex Albon is still getting the better of his teammate, bar the sprint race out in China, I think it was, because of a track limits violation, or it might have been in Miami. That's the only qualifying, basically, that Logan has managed to get one up on Alex. Otherwise, yeah, Alex has outperformed him time and time again this season. I think for Logan, more than anything, it is qualifying that seems to be a struggle for him. He does okay on a race day. Like I said, it's not amazing, and sometimes he is still lagging behind Alex Albon, but I don't think he does particularly badly in a race. Qualifying though, he just struggles to really heat up the tyres in a Q1 session to get a fast lap in, and I think the pressure of quali, because it is only one lap in a race, you can pace yourself, slowly get into the groove of it, and then do your overtakes. Quali, you just need to be switched on really, really quickly. You need to get that one fast lap in, maybe two, but you know what I mean, right? The quickest lap always seems to come later on in any of the qualifying sessions. It's one lap, you can't make a mistake, you can't buckle under the pressure, and that seems to be the area where he's struggling the most right now. I think for Logan, and I said this before I started the podcast, right? And when I was talking to friends about seeing him come up into Formula One, they pulled him up from Formula 2 way too early. I don't think that they gave him a chance to really develop in F2. I think another year in F2, he would have matured more as a driver, he would have learned a lot more, and the tests that he would have been able to do in old Williams cars, the FP1 sessions that he would have been able to do, the sort of rookie tests that he could have done, that would have helped him and his career progression and his driving so much. But they pulled him up really, really quickly from F2, and I do think that has just hampered his performance and what he is now capable of, because he's had to get up to speed so quickly. I don't think it was the smartest decision Jos Capito made, because the pull up from F2 into F1 was Jos' plan, an idea before he left, before James Vowles had joined the team. I get it, they wanted Latifi out of the team, Williams did, Jos Capito did, and understandable, because Latifi wasn't performing well against George Russell, and then when Alex Albon came in, he was struggling, right? So I understand them wanting to get Latifi out of the seat. And then they really, really wanted to put this young American in Logan Sargeant into the seat. Now, I don't know whether that was to appease the sort of American stakeholders that they had or not, whether it was to also help Williams become more marketable, especially in the American races and everything. I don't know the full reasoning behind having Logan come up. Yes, he was of course a part of their junior academy, and look, I always want to see junior academy drivers eventually come up to Formula One, the ones that really, really shine bright, are outstanding throughout their junior careers, for them to come up and eventually race for the F1 team that their junior academy was associated with. I think a lot of us want to be able to see that. That's the great thing about having junior academies. But they could have done that a year later. And I think what's happened, for whatever reason they brought Logan up, it has been at the detriment to his career now. Like I said, the reality is I don't think is going to be staying in Formula One past 2024. But is Williams going to be dropping him before the 2024 season is over? And that one is quite hard to tell, right? Some people thought it was going to be before Imola. Imola is literally around the corner now. I don't think they're swapping him out there, right? Do I think around summer break, just after summer break, when we come back at the end of August, potentially they could swap him out? I would have to say yes. I could see there being the potential. It's not strange for us to see F1 drivers dropped in the middle of the season, let's be honest, right? We saw it with Nick de Vries literally last season when Daniel Ricciardo came into his seat, right? So that's not strange. I think it's something that we do tend to see come a lot from Red Bull and their sister team VCarb. But there is a chance that Williams might just buy Logan out of his contract. Maybe there's already an exit clause for him. There might not even be a need to buy him out of his contract. I don't think it'll be this early on in the season. But yeah, maybe around just before summer break, after summer break, we could see it happen. Now, obviously, there have been rumours, and I mentioned this in my last podcast episode about Kimi Antonelli and getting that special sort of exemption for his super license, getting it early before August. If that goes through, then yeah, okay, potentially we could see Logan Sargeant out of the seat sooner. I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as what some media outlets are discussing right now. Also seen the rumours that Mercedes and Williams are trying to decide between Antonelli or Mick Schumacher getting that seat in Williams for the rest of the season. For Williams, as an entity and as a team, if they were to drop Logan Sargeant, I don't think it would be the smartest decision for them to take on another young rookie who also has not had the time to develop in Formula 2 yet. And at least Logan had done a full season. Kimi Antonelli has not finished a full season in F2 yet, right? There are other more experienced drivers that are on the grid. Even, some of the rookies that are sitting on the sidelines right now. Felipe Drugovich with Aston Martin, Jack Tuin with Alpine. Drivers who have, in Felipe Drugovich's case, won F2, but have also completed those seasons in F2, are racing in other series, are also testing F1 cars regularly and doing show runs and test runs and things like that, right? I don't think it would be the smartest decision for Williams, but potentially Mercedes might have some say. I hope they don't. I want Williams to be its own team. They're not a sister team for Mercedes. All the relationship is there, and all it should be is that Mercedes supplies engines to Williams. That is it. They're not a junior team for them. There is also the connection that, yes, James worked with Toto Wolff for a very, very long time in Mercedes. And I thought that Toto was priming James Vowles to sort of take his place whenever Toto opts to leave Mercedes. James then took the TP role with Williams, but there's still that connection, that relationship there between the two teams and the two team bosses. I don't know how much of an impact that'll end up having with James's and Williams' decision about who to put in the car, even if they wait till the end of the season, right? Even if we're waiting until 2025 to see who's going to go into Logan's seat, I don't know how much of a say Mercedes might try and have with it. Whether they do actually have an influence is another story, but they might try and have that say. Swap in mid-season though, right? Let's hypothetically say they do opt to swap Logan Sargeant out of the seat just before summer break, couple of races before summer break, and they opt to put Kimi Antonelli into that seat. I really don't know how much of a difference this is going to make to Williams, because let's be honest, the car, like I've said, is not great. Doesn't look well put together right now. The upgrades that the team were working on had to go on the back bench because they really needed to build a spare chassis. They've done that now, but that has delayed the production of the upgrades coming onto their car, right? We also don't have any guarantees with those upgrades that they will be able to fight with the likes of V-Carb and Haas, who are the two teams right now that are battling in the midfield to get into the points, and maybe Alpine is in the mix, maybe not. Story for another time. But there's no guarantee that they're going to be battling in the midfield for points. They still could be towards the bottom of the table. Having Antonelli there might not make any kind of difference. It might not change anything for Williams at all. However, if Mercedes have a say, if they try and talk to Williams and get Antonelli in because it benefits Mercedes in the long run for Antonelli to get that experience, then yeah, they might opt to do that. I just think that if we want to see Logan Sargeant in Formula 1 for a little bit longer, he's going to need such a drastic turnaround in his performance. Now, there are a couple of teams that I think might be in a little bit of trouble, let's say. The first one of those teams is Alpine. Pierre and Esteban's contracts are going to be up at the end of 2024, and realistically speaking, I don't think either of those drivers want to stay with Alpine right now. I know in Miami they were starting to look a little bit more competitive. They've hit the minimum weight limit. I could be wrong, and Alpine might have a massive turnaround by the end of this season. However, I think as of right now, I think both of their drivers are going to be talking to other teams and looking to leave, right? And if nothing else, I don't think Alpine is necessarily going to be the first choice for these drivers. I think they'll obviously want to talk to Alpine because a seat in Formula One is better than no seat. But I don't think it's going to be top of their list to really want to renew that contract. You know, sometimes we get the really simple, straightforward signings for drivers. I think Max with Red Bull, Lewis the last couple of seasons before everything with Mercedes, Charles and Ferrari. They're fairly straightforward signs because the drivers know they want to stick with the team and the team know they want to stick with the driver. I don't think the drivers in Alpine necessarily want that really easy contract negotiation right off the bat with Alpine right now. But I think Alpine are going to be a team that will potentially struggle in finding drivers. Now, like I mentioned, yes, a seat in Formula One is better than no seat at all. And if drivers are struggling to find a seat and they don't want to say goodbye to Formula One just yet, they don't want to move to another series or retire, then yes, Alpine is there, of course. But I can't necessarily, right now, see many drivers that are really going to fight for that seat on the grid, okay? There are obviously going to be rookies in Formula 2 that are sitting on the sidelines that are in different racing series right now that will happily take that Alpine seat because a seat in Formula 1 is better than no seat at all. But will Alpine want rookies in their car when it looks like there is a lot of work that needs to be done to the Alpine and a lot of driver feedback that's also needed? Esteban Ocon, as far as I know, has Toto Wolff a part of his management team, right? So I could see both Esteban and Toto trying to get Esteban out of Alpine. I have heard rumours that they are looking at potentially putting him in the Williams, so I would like him to go to Williams. But regardless, I do think both of them are going to be looking for a more competitive car for Esteban. For Pierre, I mean, it hasn't been long actually since he moved to Alpine. He's only in his second season with the team. And he'd obviously moved there, wanting to get away from AlphaTauri at the time. I think he knew he wasn't going back into the Red Bull seat, but also just wanted a more competitive car than AlphaTauri to show off his driving skills. And this season so far, he's not been able to do that. It hasn't been great, but that's not the type of driver that he is either. What bugs me with Alpine, okay, I honestly do think they have a decent, solid driver lineup in Esteban and Pierre. And I think a lot of people would tend to agree with Pierre. I know some people don't seem to rate Esteban Ocon, but I think he is severely underrated. I think he is a very good driver. And I think if the car was decent, both those drivers would be able to consistently score points for the team, try and race up the front. I mean, last season, I think it was, Esteban Ocon was on the podium, okay? Out in Monaco. So they have drivers that can race well, but the car is not doing them any favours. And this is what bugs me, is that you've got drivers, but your car is not letting them show the potential that they have. So I do think both of those drivers are going to be looking around, and I think there is a chance that Alpine might struggle in finding drivers to fill those seats, and drivers that they want. I don't think they'll necessarily struggle to fill the seat, but with all these teams, it's, are you going to be able to get the drivers you necessarily want into those seats? Now, the second team that I think is going to struggle is Mercedes, okay? Now, I'm not saying they're going to be in a whole load of trouble, because Mercedes are still fighting towards the top of the field right now. They haven't fallen back into P10, P9, P8, yeah? They're still at the top half of the constructors' table. They still have a lot of recent history with dominance, right? So I'm not saying they're going to be in a whole host of trouble, but I think the issue for them is definitely going to lie in who they opt to choose. I do think there are going to be a good couple of drivers that are lining up for that Mercedes seat, but there will be an issue of who do they opt to put into that seat, because it will not be long until Toto and Mercedes want Antonelli in that Mercedes seat. That is their grand master plan. That is what they are looking at into the future, is Kimi Antonelli becoming a full-time Mercedes F1 driver, a very, very talented driver and part of their junior academy. Toto doesn't want to make the mistake he did with Max Verstappen, where he wasn't able to sign him to the team. He doesn't want to let a chance like that slip away. That is why he is desperate to get Antonelli into the Mercedes seat. The thing is, I don't think Mercedes want him in that seat right now. Even Toto knows, as much as he would love to put Antonelli in the seat straight away, I think he realistically knows that he can't put Antonelli in there right now because it will not be helpful for the team and it won't be helpful for Antonelli. So I think that Antonelli will end up in Mercedes in 2026. I think they're going to try and get him into Williams in 2025. And if they can do that, then yes, 2026 is when Antonelli will end up in the Mercedes. Herein lies the issue, though. You then need to find a driver that is willing to take a 1-year contract with the team if you are planning to swap them out after 2025 and put Antonelli into the Mercedes seat. Unless you plan on kicking George Russell out of the team. If it's the former and you're looking to kick a driver out after a year, I think you might struggle just a little bit because a lot of the drivers want that certainty, want that job security. I think a lot of the drivers who are running out of their contract right now don't want a 1-year contract. They want at least a 2-year contract. I'm looking at the likes of Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez. These are two drivers that I think are definitely looking into the long term and would like a more than 1-year contract. And I don't think they'll be the only drivers. I'd say 99% of the drivers who are running out of a contract this year are looking for a team to offer them at least a 2-year contract, and if not, a 1+1 year. If it's the other way around and you're going to say, look, we will kick George out, then I have got to be honest, that's not something that I would be expecting. It's not something that I would have even entertained from Mercedes. But I think they are in a little bit of a pickle there and in what to do because they want a high caliber of driver. I feel like they've got their sights set on Carlos Sainz. I know there's been a lot of talk about Max Verstappen. Realistically, yeah, that's just not happening, let's be honest. I do think they've got their sights set on Carlos Sainz, but I don't think Carlos is going to be accepting a 1-year contract. And finally, the last team that I am slightly concerned about or I think might have some issues are Sauber/Audi. And that's simply because we have no assurances with Audi right now. They are going to come in as a new outfit in 2026 when the engine regulations change. We've not seen them in Formula 1 at all. We don't know how competitive they're going to be. We don't know how strong as a team they're going to be, where they're going to fall in the pecking order. It's just a completely unknown quantity. Now, they have managed to sign Nico Hülkenberg onto the team, which is great. And I think quite recently, Audi have said that Carlos Sainz is their next target signing. That is the driver they want in the car next to Nico Hülkenberg. I think it's a risky decision for Carlos Sainz, right? This guy has been racing with Ferrari for a good couple of years now, has race wins with the team, has put in some epic performances in this part of the season. And you're asking him to move to Sauber, which are a back market team for a year, and then to go to Audi, where we don't even know what they're going to do. Feels a little bit up in the air. I think more for Audi than Sauber at the moment because Audi are going to be looking into the future. Audi are a team that I think would definitely offer Carlos Sainz that long-term contract that he probably wants. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit hard. I think if Sainz is the big name, that big draw, that's the driver they really want to get onto the team, then they might struggle with that. But I'd definitely be interested to know what those conversations are between Audi and Carlos Sainz. But let's look at what my silly season predictions are. A little bit of an update on them because, yeah, stuff has gone on. And here's what I think is going to end up happening. Red Bull, Sergio Perez is out of his contract. And I've been struggling with this one, right? At the beginning of the season, definitely thought that Sergio Perez would be leaving Red Bull. I now think that there is a chance that Red Bull might opt to keep Sergio Perez. I don't really know what that chance is right now. I don't know how to quantify it, but I do think there is a probability that he does stick with Red Bull at least for another year until the engine regs change. However, The bigger part of me is saying that Sergio Perez is going to be leaving at the end of the season, and that I honestly think Carlos Sainz is taking that place. I think it would be the best seat for Carlos. He's an incredible driver. He is going to want to compete for race wins, championships, podiums, poles, fastest laps, all the rest of it, like any driver would. But he's coming off the back of a team that's done fairly well recently. I don't think he really wants to regress. The next step forward is Red Bull. He's been a part of that family before. His dad was/is associated with Red Bull. So I could see him going there. And that's my overriding feeling, is that Sainz is going to end up in Red Bull. Mercedes, obviously, Lewis Hamilton leaving at the end of the season. Skipping Ferrari because obviously we know what their lineup is with Charles and Lewis. But yes, Mercedes do have that open seat. I honestly think that Kimi Antonelli is going to end up in the Mercedes seat in his rookie season. Now, don't get me wrong, we have seen rookies sign for big name teams that are further up the grid and have been fine. Lewis Hamilton going to McLaren. I look at Lando Norris immediately being signed to McLaren. Those are the two that come to mind right now, both British drivers. And it didn't work out badly for them. It didn't hamper their performance. It didn't, put them on the back foot at all. I mean, Lewis took his first win 6 races into his rookie season. Lando Norris, I know when I watch some of his rookie year, which was the same rookie year for George and Alex Albon, he handled the pressure of being in the McLaren so well in his rookie year, right? But these were also drivers that had completed F2, completed F3 or GP2 and GP3. And in Lewis's case, he also got a lot of testing time because the rules were different for Formula 1 back in the day and what the drivers were allowed to do with testing time. So it's not me saying it's going to be absolutely awful for Kimi Antonelli and that, yeah, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to him. But I don't think it's a smart idea. I don't think a lot of people think it's a smart idea. And not because Antonelli isn't talented, not because I don't think he's going to eventually thrive in Formula 1, but between the pressure of being in a bigger team, the pressure I think Toto Wolff is definitely going to put him under, and just, not having the chance to ease in, not finishing F2 potentially, I do think he will end up being granted he's going to get his super license in August anyway, but I do think he'll probably be in the Williams this year and then pulled into Mercedes, so he'll have a couple of races under his belt. But yeah, I do think Mercedes are going to struggle to find a driver to be in there for a year. So I think they're going to just put up Antonelli pretty early. Aston Martin, right. I know people are going to be like, but Saira, haven't Aston Martin technically got their lineup? Because Fernando Alonso has been announced he's sticking around with the team. So that is locked in. Lance Stroll, however, I mean, look, we never ever know about Lance's contract. I have to assume it's just a rolling contract that gets renewed every year, right? And whenever he wants to give up, he'll be able to just walk away. I don't think he's necessarily on like a 2, 3, 4 year contract or whatever. I think it's just rolling year on year. Most people just think it's a given that Lance Stroll is going to be in Formula 1 next year. And I completely get it. However, I get this feeling more and more, right, that Lance is not going to be in F1 very long because he's not going to want to stick around for super long. You're going up against Fernando Alonso. He is a menace of a driver, first of all, but also such a smart driver, so competitive. He's in his 40s and he's driving some of the best races that he has in his career. He's still absolutely amazing to watch, and he is out qualifying you. There have been races where, yes, you have done better sometimes, Lance, but Fernando Alonso has gotten the better of you as well, and I don't know how much that is mentally starting to get to Lance, right? Last season was a struggle for him. It was really difficult. This season, we will wait and see, but I do think there's a chance that Lance might leave at the end of 2024. If he opts to leave, I think Esteban Ocon is going to Aston Martin. Let's put the two old teammates back together from Alpine. Let's get Fernando and Esteban back together. I would love that personally, but I think for Esteban, Aston Martin is definitely a more competitive outfit compared to Alpine right now. And once again, yes, Toto being his manager, there's that link between Aston Martin and Mercedes currently with the engine, but there's also that link that Toto Wolff does have shares in Aston Martin as well. So could potentially happen. I would like to see it happen. Maybe this is a bit more hopeful thinking, but yeah. That moves us on to Alpine. Now, I think Pierre Gasly will be staying with the team. I don't really know where else he would go at this point, right? Maybe he'll be the driver that goes to Aston Martin should Lance Stroll leave. But I think he's going to be staying around in Alpine. And then the seat that Esteban had that he's now vacated, I think it'll be Jack Doohan. I think Alpine will take from their junior pool after everything that happened with Oscar Piastri. I feel like they're just going to try and just shove Jack Doohan onto the grid, and I wouldn't be angry about it. Jack Doohan is a driver I would love to see in Formula One. He's a rookie that I have been dying to see in Formula One, so that is something I would be well on board with. Williams, I mean, like I said, I genuinely don't think Logan Sargeant is staying in that seat. Alex Albon is signed until 2025, like the end of 2025. I am honestly of the opinion Valtteri Bottas is going back to his old team. I think he's going to link up with Williams again. I have said this for a little bit now to like friends and family that I think Valtteri will go back to them because I don't think Audi and Sauber are looking at him, or Audi are looking to keep Bottas when they become Audi. And I've just had the opinion that, yeah, he would happily go back to Williams. I think Williams would welcome him back in. He had some amazing times there. He knows James Vowles, his team principal. He didn't like the stress and the pressure that came with driving in a top flight team with Mercedes, right? Williams, I think, would give him the chance that it's, yeah, quite a smaller team. It's not as much pressure, but you know people and you can still enjoy it there. So I think 2025 Bottas is going to be joining Williams again. No, I don't think he's retiring. I keep seeing people thinking he's going to leave the grid. Yeah, there might be a chance, but he said himself, I think, or there were rumours that he was talking to Haas and Williams, and I just feel like, yeah, Williams would happily take him back. Racing Bulls, Visa Cash App RB. Now, this was a little bit difficult, right? Yuki Tsunoda, definitely keeping that seat next year. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to be very shocked if they don't opt to keep Tsunoda. He's had some very strong performances this year, right? And I think the development that he had in 2023, all the work he put in last season, everything that he did, everything that he learned and he was applying, he's carried that on to 2024. He's not let it drop. He's not gotten complacent with things. He's working hard. He's still learning and he's still putting in those performances. And that's the key thing, I think, especially when you're a midfield team and you're fighting just to get into the points. When you've got a driver like Yuki Tsunoda helping you get into Q3, helping you get more points on a sprint and a normal Grand Prix weekend, why would you want to lose that? I would be very shocked, right? So I don't think Yuki Tsunoda is going to be leaving the grid anytime soon. I think he will be with B-Carb next year. Now, the other seat, Daniel Ricciardo's seat, that's one that I am struggling to call, okay? I think it could either be Liam Lawson or Daniel Ricciardo. I think it will depend on how Danny ends up performing for the next couple of races. He has had a new chassis put in. The performances did get better in Miami, not taken away from that at all. So yeah, he might be on an upwards trajectory now with the team. However, I think it's going to be a wait and see. I don't think it's a decision that VCARB are going to be making quickly. I'm leaning more towards, do you know what? I was going to say I was leaning more towards Liam Lawson, but I honestly can't call it because I think Red Bull are going to have a say and Christian Horner will have a say in that. And I can't call that one. It will either be Ricciardo or Lawson. I think Lawson's the only one really in contention for a seat with that team that obviously isn't already racing with that team. So yeah, it will be between Lawson and Ricciardo, I think. And I can't figure out which will be staying around. Kick Sauber turning into Audi in 2026. I mean, Nico Hülkenberg has already been confirmed. I think Zhou Guanyu is going to be staying with the team for another year. I think they're going to have him on a 1 year, 1+1 year contract probably. Audi, I think, will be looking to find a driver for 2026, but I'm not 100% sure if they'll be able to find anyone for 25, especially if Carlos does not sign with them. I don't really know who else they are targeting after that. So I think Zhou will be sticking around for another season. And then finally, it's Haas. Now, I am on my Ollie Behrman agenda once again. If you've listened to previous episodes or you've seen me on social media, I have basically guaranteed Ollie Behrman a seat in Haas, right? And I have done since the end of last season. I think I've basically said, yeah, I can't wait to see Ollie Behrman on the grid in 2025. I'm going to be so embarrassed if he does not get a seat next season. But no, I'm not veering from this. Ollie Behrman will have a seat with Haas in 2025. Look, I think there's been a lot of talk about Antonelli, okay, on the grid because of everything with Mercedes and the super license and all the rest of it, yeah? And he is a phenomenal driver, and yeah, I'm not taking away from that at all. Ollie Behrman, I think, because of all of that, has dropped off the radar after his Saudi Arabia debut in Formula One in Ferrari for Carlos Sainz, right? I don't think the media has really spoken about him very much, which, okay, fair enough, right? No problem with that. But I think, yeah, you can't forget the performance that he put in out in Saudi Arabia and how quickly he had to just get in the car, get to grips with it, get into qualifying and then race. I will genuinely be shocked if Ollie does not get a seat with Haas. That second seat though, right, because I think Behrman will take Nico Hülkenberg's seat. With Kevin's seat, that's another one I'm struggling with, like the VCARB seat, right? Because he was the driver I thought would be leaving Haas before I found out that Nico was leaving Haas. Now I can't figure out what Haas will want to do. Do you want an entirely new driver lineup? Do you want to get a different driver in? Do you want to keep Kevin? Or do you want a rookie? That's what I can't figure out right now. That's what I'm struggling with just a little bit. Because unlike last year, Haas are not at the back of the field right now. They are scoring points. Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen have shown there is good race pace and qualifying pace in that car. They look like they're solving their issues, right? And they're actually moving forward as a team. But I am struggling to figure out what they want to do with Kevin's seat because he's not been performing the way that Nico Hülkenberg has. So do you want to just scrap it and just start all over again? But when you are slowly building up and you become a stronger team, do you want to risk losing every part of your driver lineup? So I'm not sure. Maybe another 1 + 1 year contract for Kevin. Or, right, because all of these predictions have Sergio Perez off the grid. Would they try and sign Sergio Perez? And would Sergio Perez go to Haas? Do you think that's a bit too far-fetched to say that Sergio Perez would join Haas? Because I don't think so, right? I don't think so. If Sergio can't find another seat on the grid and Haas are there and they're giving him an offer, I think he would take it. There is the chance that Mercedes might take Sergio Perez, so if Antonelli does go to Williams and Williams are like, we want to keep him for a year or two, and Mercedes are like, yep, that's actually better for his development, they might opt to take Sergio Perez. I would be so interested to see a lineup in Mercedes of Sergio Perez and George Russell. I think we just hear a lot of rule books are recited down the radio at each other. So potentially him going to Mercedes, potentially him going to Haas. Yes, I still think there's a probability that he could sign with Red Bull for another year. If he does the Formula One, I don't think he's going to retire from racing. We heard that apparently he had conversations with Formula E. Nothing concrete, nothing formal, but just in general, he's in conversation with people in Formula E. So I think that is an option for him. And there are so many other racing series out there that he could join. I don't think he would retire straight off the bat. So those are my updated thoughts and feelings about silly season. I think the introduction of Antonelli and potentially getting a super license early has changed a couple of bits for me. Nico Hülkenberg being announced to Sauber has changed one or two things for me as well. But yeah, that's what I think could potentially play out over the next couple of months. I don't think they're too out there. I think most of them are realistic. Sergio Perez is just one driver that I can't put my finger on what's going to happen with him. I would be a little bit surprised if he ends up completely off the grid, though. I know I didn't really put him in any team now, but I would be surprised if he just ends up off of the grid. Haas, maybe. Mercedes, maybe. He's an enigma to me right now, and there is always a possibility that Valtteri Bottas could end up deciding that he doesn't want to stick around in Formula One anymore. Maybe Sergio would go to Williams. There are a lot of moving pieces with silly season. It's difficult, but between the last couple of parts of news of Formula One, with Lewis leaving Mercedes to join Ferrari, Adrian Newey opting to leave Red Bull, the FIA being given a request for Kimi Antonelli to get his super license early. It's just a little bit unpredictable, isn't it? Just a tiny, tiny bit. But we will wait and see what happens. I think when F1 get back from Canada, because we have 2 European races, then we got to Canada. I think when we come back to Europe after Canada is when we're going to see a lot more articles, I think, about people talking to people and where some of the drivers go. I think a lot of the talk for silly season has surrounded Carlos Sainz and where he's going to go. Understandably so, but there have been a lot of sort of pictures and people figuring out what he could do next, because he's talking to XYZ people in the paddock. What does it mean? Where might he go? Is him talking to Helmut Marko sign that he's going to be joining Red Bull? So a lot of that, and then also a lot of where Adrian Newey is going to go next. But I think over the next month or so, we are going to start hearing about all of the other drivers who are running out of a contract, because there are a lot of them. Now, before I finish this episode, I want to ask you guys a little bit of a favour, if you are able to. From the 15th of May to the 15th of June, I'm taking part in a virtual walk. Some people are running, some people are cycling, for medical aid for Palestine. I will hopefully, inshallah, be completing 70 kilometers over that month, which is the distance from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza, to raise money for medical aid for Palestine. I'm going to leave the link for that in the show notes or in the description if you're watching on YouTube. The aim is to raise £200 to help get medical supplies, medical aid and healthcare services into Palestine and into Gaza, to really help those thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that need that help. So if you are able to donate anything or to help out, I would really, really greatly appreciate it. And if you're not, because I know everyone's circumstances are different, if you're not, but you know people who would be able to donate, who would be happy to donate, please send them the link. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Steward_office, and I will see you guys the next time you're summoned to the Steward's office.